Hey guys, I'm Xiaoling and this is Mighty Number 9. So this game was funded on Kickstarter in 2013 and in fact managed to raise around $4 million. I believe it was the sixth most successful Kickstarter in history. So pretty impressive to say the least. However, all has not been entirely well. This game has been surrounded by some controversy since there have been several delays since 2013 and have kept pushing back the release date. So what is Mighty Number 9? It's basically the spiritual successor of sorts to Mega Man and will finally be coming out on June the 21st on Steam. So the question is, after all of that funding and after all those delays, is the game going to be any good? And is it going to live up to the expectations that people have for it? Well, I've been playing the review build over the past little while, and I feel I've played enough to give you guys my thoughts on the game. Some good and some not so good. But before we get into the actual gameplay, let's take a look at the options that are available. So first up, let's head into the general options. We have the video settings. This game uses the Unreal 4 engine, so it's got a fair amount of settings, I suppose. Pretty much everything that you'd expect. You've got full screen, you've got borderless window and windowed mode. You've got a variety of different resolutions. The game does support all the way up to 4K if you are wanting to play at that resolution. But I do want to say though that even when I'm putting it up to 2560 by 1440 or 1600, because I have a 1016 by 10 monitor, the frame rate does seem to hiccup every now and again when playing on my 970. I'm running SLI 970s as well. And in fact, even sometimes in 1080, the game frame rate seems to drop in certain instances, which is quite surprising considering the way the game looks. But we'll get onto that when we load up the game itself. We've got screen percentage, which is going to be some kind of a downscaling, I would imagine. We have gamma, vertical synchronization, graphic quality. It goes up to high. The next set is custom, so if you want to customize this outside of one of the medium, low, and high presets, you can do that. We've got texture quality, we've got effects quality, anti-aliasing. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually tell you what kind of anti-aliasing this is. I think it would have been nice to actually know. We have anisotropic filterings up to 16 as well, shadow quality, bloom, and motion blur. So for those of you who don't like motion blur, you can go ahead and disable this. Moving on to the BGM volumes, you can see we've got sound effects volume, voice volume, and the music volume as well. A neat little option that the game has is retro BGM. Retro BGM, let's try that again in English. If you are wanting to run with an 8-bit soundtrack, you can just turn this on and you can hear the music change. Moving on to other, you can calibrate your gamepad if you are deciding to use one. I'm currently using an Xbox type gamepad and I've had no problems with this. This is not a Logitech pad. I know people have had issues with many games and their Logitech pads, so I can't vouch that those will work correctly since, as I said, I'm using an Xbox gamepad for my current setup. You've got text language, so you can change between a variety of different languages if you so desire. You've got voice language, which is nice. What looks like Japanese to me there, or French or English. So there aren't a whole lot of voice options, but it's nice to see that they've got some voice options. You can have a normal cancel button. And lives remaining, this is going to change how many lives you have at the beginning of each stage. You can see here that this only affects normal mode. If you're playing on hard mode, this is not going to do anything at all. I don't know if this is going to affect your overall score and outcome at the end, but the default is 2 and it does go all the way up to 9. This might be advisable for when you are first starting out, trying to learn the game and to learn the mechanics of the various bosses in the game. So now you've got X mode as well. Let's do that before we get into the main game mode. These are like extra modes in the game. You can see we have challenge mode in solo. I believe there is a co-op challenge mode in the game as well. So if you do want to do that, I think it needs to be unlocked because I don't see it anywhere here. You know, we have leaderboards, obviously. I'm not sure what these 3 tabs do. I'm assuming one of them are co-op mode. And then finally, we've got the main game mode over here. So of course, you've got 3 different tabs. You can select any of these depending on how many profiles you want. You could have one on hard mode, one on normal mode, or whatnot. It shows you your score, your time played, as well as what suits you've currently unlocked, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So now in the main mode, if I go to the right, we've got challenge mode and leaderboards again. So this is just another way to access the same thing. This is the main campaign story mode, which we're going to look at in a moment. And moving over to this side, you can see we've got exit game, back to title, which takes us to the screen we were on. But we have two other tabs here. Now we've got general options, which is essentially the option screen that we were in earlier, so you can access it from here as well. But now we have something called game options. Now this tab is actually quite important, and the reason I say that is because it controls the tips. You can see here there are a number of different tips. Now none of this information is given to you in the tutorial when you start the game. You can see it explains absolutely every aspect of the UI. It's got other useful controls. This is all very, very handy information, and I think that this menu perhaps should have been more easily accessible, and that they shouldn't have hidden it behind game options. I think it should have been on the front page of that particular menu. But anyway, if you guys are going to play the game, make sure you check out the screen first. It's going to save you somewhat of a headache. Moving on to the next thing, you can see we have keyboard customizations. We can customize the gamepad to your liking. You've got reflex. So here you can choose your different suits. Every time you beat a boss in the game, you're going to get access to their suit, which you can change to on the fly. All of the suits come with different abilities and things like that. Now, if you are using the keyboard and mouse, you can actually change your hotkey. So you can, set 1, 2, or 3, or whatever it is that you want to switch to that form. It's a little bit harder with the controller. You have to press a button and choose the suit and then change into said suit. So it's nice to have hotkeys with the keyboard. Moving on to other, just a bunch of various other options like support, double tap to dash, vibration, display messages, different various effects. You can also choose what costume you want the main character in the game to be wearing. Okay, so the main bulk of the game is going to be the campaign mode. We've got a variety of different maps to choose from. 9 of them are displayed here, so you can see we've got all different environments. Each of these are level, and each of these levels have a boss at the end. So all of the stages have different types of monsters, different types of environments and things like that, but there are a fair amount of stages to choose from. However, the Steam store says there are 12 stages, so perhaps once you've completed all of these stages, additional stages are going to unlock. I'm not entirely sure myself. Okay, so once you load into the game, the first thing you'll notice, at least the first thing I noticed, now this isn't as apparent on this particular stage, but some of the texture details seem to be relatively low. We'll get to an example a little bit later in the stage. But, some of the graphics seem decent and some of the parts just don't. It's like they're almost unfinished or something like that. So the blue bar is your health, and the idea is to get to the end of the stage. When you start shooting monsters, you can see they get this sort of particle effect when you dash into them. That 20% meant combo power, so the faster you get it, the more points you're going to get for your particular combos. So when these different mobs, you can just dive into all of them and you get various amounts of points, and you can build up your combo multiplier, which is going to give you more score. The mobs that have green or red items will give you buffs as well, so you can see I've got a speed buff now from the green turret. And this red guy over here is going to give me boost firepower, so these shots are going to go through mobs as well as do more damage. If you collect a bunch of different particles at the same time, you're going to get more of a combo multiplier bonus, which in turn is going to give you more points. So you're essentially going to be running through the stage, you're going to be dashing into things. You can see I've got a 1.5 times combo multiplier there. So these guys are green, they are going to give me speed boosts when I get them. These are health packs that are going to give you more health. And you can see I've got a little marker below my health bar now. That's basically essentially like a med pack. You can actually press pause and you can use AC cell to recover, and sometimes you can get an additional one as well. And what this is going to do is going to give you full health. You can also see on the left hand side the 2 suits, because I've defeated the first boss on the first level. So I can now change to his, so if I press this, I can cycle between the various suits. The top one is default, so I can just change to this. This guy drops mines, so I can drop the mine and the mine's basically going to shoot stuff. If I wanted to shoot up, I'll basically hold up and I'll place the mine, and then it'll shoot stuff up, but it'll shoot at anything that's basically nearby it. You can see that. It's quite handy actually. You can put down sort of 3 at a time. Obviously if you destroy these mobs, you're not going to get any combo bonus or anything like that. Another thing is shooting shooting boxes sometimes gives you med packs and things like that. The dash is quite important in the game. Let's slide under this guy and get that. As you can see, this gun's going to go through everything, so I can get them all, and I can dash to them, I can dash to these, and get a nice big multiplier. So as you start learning the stages, it actually becomes quite fun. When I first started playing, I must say that I really disliked the game. I didn't really play Mega Man back in the day. I mean, I played a lot of side-scrolling shooters and platform games. I have been playing games since the 80s, I suppose, and that's too much talking, and I died. Which is a good leeway. Like I say, you start with 2 lives on every map, as I mentioned earlier, so now you can see I only have 1 left. If I run out of lives on any particular map, I basically have to start the whole stage from the beginning again. Which in itself is not really a problem, but it becomes a problem when you start trying to fight the bosses on each stage, because a lot of them have mechanics that are basically going to insta-kill you. So, you know, you'll get there with your 5 lives, because you can pick up additional lives on each stage. But you'll get there and then you won't know what the mechanic is, and then, you know, they're going to insta-kill you, and then it's going to take a few tries, you know, to try and work out what the technique is. And in some cases you're going to die, you're going to lose all your lives, and you're going to have to start the whole stage from the beginning again. That's why I suggested that it may be a good idea to turn the life numbers up when you play the game for the first time, at least to avoid yourself some frustration. Good thing though, there are checkpoints in the game, so you don't have to go to the right back to the beginning of each stage when you die. But you'll see that on some of the stages, some of the objects in the stage have a decent amount of detail, but for some reason other objects seem to be very low detail, and we have very low texture quality, which is quite surprising. As I mentioned, this is the Unreal Engine, and I mean, I understand that it's an indie game and that there's probably quite a small team of people working on this. The stages are actually quite varied, so, you know, they offer a fair amount of different kinds of things. Like now you're actually on a moving train, you're going to be on moving cars and whatnot. As you can see, there's a lot of voice as well for the particular game. However, I think that the voice acting is a little bit weak in this particular game. Very average, very mediocre, unfortunately. But I suppose this kind of game is more about getting a high score than following the story, so it's not really a deal breaker. Although what I will say though is when there are cutscenes that play, the characters don't animate. They sort of just stand there in this very sort of static pose. Their lips don't even move, their mouths don't even move, shall I say, and then you hear them talking. And I think that, you know, it makes it seem like it was lazy, like a lazy approach. I think perhaps maybe a better idea would have been to have high quality still art and then have the voiceover there, because that's worked in a lot of titles as well, rather than having very poorly animated, non-mouth moving characters, you know, in the cutscenes. But as I said, when I first started playing the game, I really didn't like it, but it grew on me once I figured out there was the tip screen, there's a whole bunch of other moves that you can do. It made the game start feeling a little bit more enjoyable. I don't think that the graphics quality deters too much from the experience. To be honest, it was a bit of a surprise, you know, that some of the stuff looks like the kind of quality you would have found on games between the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2, except, you know, at 1080p now. So that was a little bit disappointing. But as I said, it doesn't really detract too much from the actual game experience itself. I think the enemies you fight are relatively varied. You know, every stage has you have it approach it very differently. The one thing that clever. The one thing that does frustrate me a little bit about this game, and it had me pulling my hair out when I first started playing, was that the bosses, as I said, they have this ability phase to, you know, use an ability that'll just one-shot you, and that's a little bit frustrating because, you know, it can get quite tiresome to keep repeating stages from the beginning because of one part of one phase of a boss encounter that you fail and you haven't managed to work out. There's some stages where you have to jump down sections, but you can't actually see where you're jumping down onto. So what ends up happening is you die because you jump down, and then of course there's some kind of insta-kill electrified fence or something over there, and you end up dying because you didn't actually see what there was down there. And I think it would have been nice to have that feature that a lot of these platformers have now, where you can use the right analog stick to actually look around the screen, you know, sort of to nudge the screen up or down, left or right, so you can see a little bit further than the default view. So at least you can plan and prepare yourself for, you know, where you're basically headed. But otherwise, I think the experience is quite enjoyable. I don't think it's anything particularly new. I think those of you who have enjoyed Mega Man types of games are probably going to feel quite at home here. I'm not sure if I think that the $20 price tag is worth it. There are a number of really good games on Steam that can be picked up that perhaps have a lot more content than this. Well, it won't really take you extremely long to work through all the 9 levels in the game. I mean, just in the few hours that I've spent with the game, I haven't managed to beat all the bosses at the end of every of the stages, but I've basically played through all of the 9 stages completely. The other thing that I wanted to talk about also was the power-ups that you get. They don't get any more varied or any more powerful. So there's always only going to be those 3, you know, your armor power-up, your speed power-up, and your shot power-up, which is going to increase the damage. You're not going to get, you know, variations of those or better versions of those. They're always just going to be the same. So I think before we conclude, what I can just quickly show you is one of the challenge maps, just to give you an idea of what you can expect in the challenge mode. Okay, so these challenges are actually quite difficult. In this particular one, we have 90 seconds to get there, and so they're teaching you how to use your dash. And you can see that we need to avoid these electricity sections. Oh, helps if I go the right way. And as you can see, the challenges are going to get a little more difficult as time goes on. So you don't want to, we don't want to be in there when the beams are full. Yeah, so that's pretty much been a look at Mighty Number 9. As you can see, I think it's a decent game. As I said, I don't necessarily think that it's worth $20, but again, that might be down to your personal preference. But that's it for me in this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you guys have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the section below. I've been Charling, and I'll see you next time.
Second approach time 33, approach flight 17.